to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to On My Way to Wealth. Today, I have a very good friend of mine. I have the honor of having Marguerita Cheng. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Blue Ocean Global Wealth based in the DMV. The DMV is in the house, the DC metropolitan area. She's a regular columnist for Investopedia and Kiplinger, holds multiple designations such as the Certified Financial Planner certification, Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor. The list goes on and on. She's also a Certified Financial Planning Board of Standards Ambassador, and she helps educate the public, policymakers, and the media about the benefits of competent, ethical financial planning, and also helps move the financial planning industry forward via her writing, public speaking, and volunteering work with several organizations, including the Financial Planning Association. Rita is the recipient of several industry recognitions, including the number 3 most influential financial advisor in the Investopedia Top 100 in 2017, and a woman to watch InvestmentNews. She's the mother of 2 beautiful daughters and a son. She's also a runner, most recently having completed 3 marathons, including the New York City marathons for Girls on the Run. Rita and I met on Twitter, and she has been very influential in my career and development ever since. So without further ado, Marguerita Cheng.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me, Luis. I am so honored that we were able to connect via my writing and via Twitter. So you can't tell me that people don't read.
Absolutely. I am glad that you were paying attention because you have definitely had such an impact in my career, whether you know it or not, but it's just been amazing. So I'm glad that we connected. And I'm also very honored that you agreed to be on this, to spread some really good information that people need to hear.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump right into it. So today's topic is protecting yourself and your loved ones from credit scams. So Marguerita, tell us, why are we more at risk than ever before to fall victim to credit scams and identity thefts?
Well, there are a variety of things at play. First, we have statistics, meaning we have an aging population. And so our parents and relatives, friends, and loved ones are going to be more vulnerable. Second, technology. These aren't just phones. These smartphones are mini computers. And we have a lot of information readily available at our fingertips. That also means that information is readily available for thieves.
Got it. That is true. The phones are definitely mini computers and they have a lot of information. So tell us about some of the most recent breaches that we've heard of that had impact on a lot of people in this country.
So sure. So I am going to add a little bit of DC humor to the mix here. You know, it's a sad day when the IRS has a security breach. One of my clients was so upset. He's like, you talk about adding insult to injury. Now I can no longer file electronically. I have to do paper returns, which means it's going to take longer. So there's different types of scams out there. There is the IRS scam. There is also the grandparent scam, the sweetheart scam, the charity scam. I mean, there's a scam of the month.
Unfortunately, sounds like it. Can you tell us a little bit about more or less how they work? What are these scammers trying to do? How do they get you?
So first and foremost, and there's also the lottery scam. I can't believe I forgot the lottery scam.
Wow.
So basically what scammers try to do is they will try to get information from you, whether that's your social security number, your bank account information, and they'll try to pretend to say, hey, this is the IRS calling. And of course, people are panicked. Oh my gosh, I need to settle my tax bill. They're like, yes, you can settle it. Just give us your social security number. First of all, I can tell you, Luis, you're an enrolled agent. The IRS does not make outbound calls. They just don't have the ability to do that. Any correspondence, they'll first send a letter. So that's the IRS scam. The lottery scam, it's so funny. Sometimes people aren't rational. I'm like, did you even buy a lottery ticket? So if you didn't buy a lottery ticket, how would you be eligible to win? Or the worst, and I can't believe I forgot this scam, the prince. Now, my son is so funny. He'll say, now, what makes you think a prince would want to call you? But jokes aside, it's very important that we're vigilant. But I think the one that really touches, that is near and dear to my heart, is the grandparent scam. Because, my mom, She is the proud grandma of 7 kids, and my mom has not fallen prey to the grandparent scam, but it's real because someone actually did try to pretend to be my son. And she asked me, she's like, is Christian, that's my son's name, okay? I'm like, yeah, mom, he's sound asleep. She's like, oh no, someone called and said he was in New Jersey. I'm like, no, mom, he's sound asleep. So the grandparent scam is somebody, a evil thief or a scam artist will pretend to be a grandchild and call grandparents, say, hey, I'm in trouble, grandma. And the grandparent will say, hey, is this Charlie? Is this Daniel? And you're like, yeah, this is Daniel. Hey, I need money. And next thing you know, grandparents find themselves running to wire money or purchase gift cards only to find themselves out of this money that it truly was a scam.
Wow. So they're able to get information that pretty much they get you to divulge information and they run with it.
Exactly. They prey upon people's fears. And we know how grandparents feel about their grandchildren. They love them and they want them to be safe and healthy and they want to rescue them. So these con artists are definitely preying upon different emotions.
Wow. That is amazing. So what are some of the things that we can do to protect ourselves from these scammers?
Well, first and foremost, I think that we need to be talking about this. Just because we don't talk about it does not mean it will not happen. And if we talk about it, it doesn't mean we're jinxing our family. So the first thing we need to do is talk about it. The other thing that we need to do is we need to just check up on people. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I write about this a lot. I've had people, strangers, email me and even call me to thank me. Oh, Rita, thank you so much for your article on sweetheart scams. You really prevented a major crisis in my family. So I would say the number one thing we can do is talk about this. The second thing we can do is be wary of sharing your information over the phone, on mail, online, or even email. So, protect your information. It is personal information. I think about what CFP board says. It's non-public personal information. And then, you don't need to make decisions or talk to people over the phone. So I would say I think this is valuable information. So talk about it, be careful the information you share. And last but not least, if you do suspect something, listen to your instincts.
Okay. So sometimes going back to how they get you to divulge information, and you mentioned phones. So that also happens online, right? Sometimes you're on Facebook and you get this, some sort of quiz pops up, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm going to confess here. My kids are so thrilled with me because I'm not really that active on Facebook. It has nothing to do with being old. But you're right. Facebook is a gold mine for people. They know the name of your grandchildren. They probably know the name of your cat or dog. And you might even say, oh, we're going on vacation. So you really need to be careful the information that you're divulging. Absolutely. These thieves are quite crafty. One has got to wonder if they only could put their energy and hard work to doing something more meaningful, the world could truly be a better place.
I agree. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about credit freezes. When is it a good idea what are they? How do you do one? What's the benefit of?
Sure. A credit freeze can stop new creditors from accessing your credit report. And a credit freeze is free, and it basically puts a lockbox on your credit. So, in other words, if there is no access to your reports, identity thieves can't open financial accounts in your name. And this actually happened to one of my clients. They're young, they're Gen X, and they started to get alerts from Credit Sesame that people were opening accounts. I live in Maryland, and these thieves were opening accounts, going shopping up and down Rockville Pike. And so what I recommended that they do is they put a credit freeze. Now, I'm a little bit intense. Some people say, well, if you just contact one credit agency, that's good enough. And it very well may be. But you know what? I told my clients to contact each of the 3 major credit bureaus to set up a credit freeze. Because I know there's some information sharing, but let's think about this. If you're sharing bad information or inaccurate information, that's not good enough. So you can do a credit freeze and contact the 3 major credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And the reason I think this is important is you're basically preventing thieves from opening new accounts. Now, that means that you can't open a new account, but what you can do is you just call to unlift the freeze.
And how do you go about doing these? Do you go to their websites or you do it over the phone?
So, sure, you can go right online. So, you can go to Experian.com, Equifax.com, or TransUnion.com. You can also call the 1-800 numbers and do it over the phone. Some people may prefer to do it online. Other people might want to do it over the phone. I do know that I have listened to the automated menu and it says if you've done one, it's enough. But I actually take the extra step and I've done it with clients where I'm sitting right there, we're like getting a latte, and they'll just call the number. What is that saying? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
That's true. I like that. I like that very much. Well, for our listeners, I'm definitely going to put the direct links to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion in the show notes. So you don't have to worry about memorizing it. You just go to onmywaytowealth.com and look at the show notes for this particular episode for the resources that Rita has shared. Now, let me ask you this, Rita, since you're saying we can freeze our credit. So in essence, you contact the credit bureaus, you put a lockbox on it. Neither you or anybody else can access your credit. And then if you need to go shopping for something like a car or a mortgage or something you're going to apply for, you just go before that, unfreeze it for a certain amount of time, and then apply and then freeze it back. Is it that easy?
Yes, you absolutely can do that. So you can ask. So if you think that you need credit to buy a car or refinance your mortgage, you can contact the credit bureaus to suspend or lift the freeze. And then when you're finished with that, you can contact the credit bureaus and say, please resume the freeze. One of the things that I would suggest is now that you know, or maybe you weren't a victim, but you were informed that your data was compromised. So your data didn't necessarily get in the hands of a thief to open an account, but your data is out there. You still can put a credit freeze. And if you want to see your credit reports, you can go. So this is a consolidated credit report. Instead of going to all three agencies, you can go to annualcreditreport.com and make sure everything what it should be. Because remember, they do share information, but there also could be discrepancies.
Got it. I think you bring a very good point. Like, don't wait until something happens to then react, right? So in essence, it's be, like you said, that ounce of prevention, was it a pound of, what was it? Can you say that again?
Absolutely. An ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. So even as we listened to the number and I told them, I said, listen, I have heard that if you report a freeze to one agency, you don't necessarily have to do it to all three. But you know what? This is belts and suspenders. You want your financial planner to be on top of this. And so we did call all three. I think it's worth it because the last thing you want to do, people are busy, is for you to have to, oh my God, what's this bill? What is this? And have to start contesting everything or disputing.
Right. And a lot of us were probably, the Equifax breach, how many people's information were compromised?
Oh my gosh, it was millions. I don't even want to say the wrong number.
It was over 100 million, right? It was like a third of the country.
Right, exactly. It was millions. I mean, I was thinking like, gosh, if every person received $1, that would be that would be quite a windfall. But what Equifax did is they allowed people, they provided credit monitoring. But if you did get that, you weren't necessarily allowed to pursue legal action. So what I tell people that you can either use the credit monitoring service that your credit card has, or maybe your credit union offers that. You can also use like Credit Sesame or Credit Karma. It does not cost any money to set up Credit Sesame. You get alerts. And that's very helpful because you can see if someone tried to open an account, and you can also see your credit score as well.
Got it. You know what I've used in the past is I call it like the poor man's credit monitoring, which is using one of the resources you mentioned, annualcreditreport.com. So you can get all three credit bureaus' credit reports for free using this service, right? So what I usually would say to people, look, you can pull like your Equifax today, your TransUnion in 4 months, and your Experian 4 months after that. So in essence, just checking one of the bureaus every 4 months as a way of precaution, if you don't want to spend the money for credit monitoring. But like you mentioned, there's a lot of services out there that are free now, including some of the credit cards already provided. So why not take advantage?
I mean, absolutely. I definitely agree. And then one thing that is nice about having a credit freeze is no one can open those accounts. So that gives you a little bit of peace of mind. But if you're like most people and you get a lot of junk mail and you're like, oh my gosh, this is killing me. I'm sick of like getting solicitations. You can also opt out of receiving these. So you can visit optoutprescreen.com. And why is this relevant? So remember how we talked about the different scams.
Mm-hmm.
Another way in which you can reduce scams is when you're mailing your bills, don't just put them in your mailbox, because even take a picture. I know I'm scaring everybody, and get your bank account information. So guess what? Now the thief knows where you live. They know where you bank, and they know your routing number and checking account number. And if you put personal information on Facebook, well, they know your birthday. So you just need to be careful. Sharing is caring, Luis, but this is not the time to be sharing your information.
Wow. That is a very scary picture that you painted, because you're so right. Somebody they can go online, you're like, hey, I'm celebrating my 40th today. So they literally know your exact date of birth. They know where you live now because the mail at the store, and they just put all the pieces together. Now, let me ask you this. Talking about credit freezing, is that something that we can do for our young kids as well?
So, my kids are old enough to actually have credit, but I still have a 14-year-old. So believe it or not, there are people that actually, I didn't want to really talk about this because it is horrible. So my dad died 5 years ago, right? And of course I have to do the right thing and report my dad's death. I mean, the funeral home gives me a death certificate, has SSN, and so that means his Social Security stops. There are people that will take information from loved ones who may be deceased. There also will be people who will take your children's Social Security numbers. Now, kids are under 18, so it may not be easy to open credit, but if they're young adults, you definitely want to coach your kids on protecting themselves from someone opening credit in their name. So everybody is vulnerable. I know I feel like I'm scaring people, but I'm McGruff, the crime dog. I'm trying to prevent identity theft and scams.
No, believe me, I always tell people, for the most part, I think I'm more worried about somebody stealing my identity than actually being mugged in the street,
Exactly. This is a new crime. Exactly. Because, if you're mugged in the street, I think someone would feel bad for me if they looked at my wallet. There's not much in there.
Most people don't carry cash anymore, right? Anyways.
Right, exactly. They'd be like, oh my God.
Now, I wanted to touch back on the parent stuff, because my parents are old. My father's going to be 90. My mother's going to be 79. And I was reading an article, which I'm also going to have as a featured blog post for those of you listening, that I could see my parents falling victim to a scam very easily, because they could easily call and just be like, hey, grandma, you know who this is? And they'll just respond, start shouting names. Christian, Louis, and they'll just run with that information, right? So I wanted to ask you, what are some of the things that we should probably tell our parents? Because a lot of our audience is in that Generation X, where they have younger kids, but they also have their parents still alive. What can we tell our parents to help protect them from falling victim to one of these scams?
Well, sure. I mean, as our parents age, the roles and responsibilities do shift. And believe it or not, there are probably more millennials that have security breaches. But the reason why it's so much harder when seniors or retirees or older Americans become victims of identity theft or fraud or security breaches is because they have more assets. They are also more trusting, and they are less likely to report these things for a variety of reasons. Many times they are relying on people in their inner circle, family, friends, relatives, for caregiving. And so they may be less likely to report it. So some of the same advice holds true here. You definitely want to talk about it. If you have siblings and relatives, you want to make sure that they're on the same page as well. So what I mean by the same page is if you notice spending that is abnormal or unusual, definitely talk to your parents about that. The other thing is making sure that you tell them, this is the exact advice I tell my clients who have aging parents. You want to have 3 piles of mail. You have the shred pile. So definitely buy a shredder. Then you have like the junk mail pile. And then you have the pile that is like relevant, because a lot of our parents aren't necessarily doing things online. So they're still getting a lot of paper mail. And you want to just make sure that you're going through the mail and that they are not responding to phone calls or online solicitations or direct mail for anything that we think is questionable.
Okay. So I remember reading your article, you mentioned some of those examples. One of them was like a fake charity scam. So they'll just try to like reach your parent and get them to donate money and just take their credit card info or bank account information.
Absolutely. So an example is after like a natural disaster, like a hurricane, there might be people, hey, what about people who lost their home? And of course, retired folks, they're at home, they're lonely, they're going to answer the phone. So I think one way to avoid this is like to tell your parents, don't answer the phone. I actually have a lot of clients that have actually like cut the cord. Cut the cord means like they like no longer have a landline. So, talk to your parents, tell them not to answer the phone. Be sure to monitor the mail. And I mean, if you do think they have been a victim, make sure that you contact the bank or the credit card to have them. You might have to cancel the debit cards or credit cards and replace them. And if your parents, my mom is not that old. My mom is 72. Her mom lived to be 94. So I know my mom very well could live like another 30 years in retirement. So I know that my mom is incredibly trusting. When I first got her a smartphone, I had to have the conversation. And my kids will tell you, I was actually more worried about grandma, meaning my mom's online safety, than I was my kids, because there was a little bit of a learning curve. I just say, oh no, mom, this is not what you do. Don't overshare on these social media sites. So I think that, making sure that we don't try to take control of our parents' situation, but we're there to like monitor and just step in so that these things don't get out of hand.
Got it. I remember you mentioned in your article too, there was some sort of like counterfeit prescription scam. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh my goodness. I know. I feel like there definitely is a scam of the month. So no, there definitely is. So, healthcare costs are real. I live in Maryland, which is not far from DC, and it's really difficult when you try to tell someone retired that inflation is low. They're like, inflation of what? Because healthcare is inflating at a much higher cost. And healthcare, not just meaning fees for medical procedures and office visits, but also prescription drugs. So there are scams related to counterfeit prescription medication, because the temptation to save money on the same medication seems very appealing, but it could also lead to disastrous effects. Not only will they lose the money, but this may be like fake medicine, fake news, right? Fake medicine, it could have serious side effects, which could put their health at risk. So I would say, make sure that if your parents and loved ones are concerned about healthcare costs and you're not able to accompany them to the office visits, find out if there are generic equivalents, or even before you fill the prescription, to find out if maybe they can have like a sample to see if it works for them. But you don't want your parents to be, or your loved ones to be, out of money and then put their health at risk. You talk about adding insult to injury. That's awful.
Yeah, absolutely. Very unfortunate. Like you said, a lot of people put so much effort into doing the wrong thing. It's unbelievable.
I know, it's unbelievable. It's very, very upsetting. So yes, I mean, I would say that the prescription drugs, what rational person wouldn't want to save money where they could? And this is a situation where, thieves are preying upon that behavior and taking advantage of the situation.
Wow, that is amazing. So let me ask you, what if, unfortunately, somebody does fall victim to one of these? What should they do? What are the first 1 or 2, 3 steps that you recommend that somebody realizes, like, okay, I'm definitely a victim of an identity theft or something like that? What should I do?
So, identity theft. So, if someone is a victim of identity theft, the first thing I would say is they definitely want to contact their financial institutions. The second thing is, to do the credit freeze, then contact law. Of course, contact law enforcement, police reports, and then report anything to the FCC. I think that there are situations in which law enforcement will come out. This isn't a situation where it's like a scam per se, but this is a situation where one of my clients was in the parking lot of Home Depot, and someone came up to her and asked for money. And she's like, she felt bad because this appeared to be a homeless woman. So this isn't actually a scam that's on our list, but I wanted to talk about this. And she gave this person some money. Well, come to find out, that person was following her. And this client told me about it. I knew her husband when he was alive. And what I did is during our meeting, we actually called the police, and the police came because we were very concerned that the people knew where she lived. So this isn't necessarily a scam per se. This is like, in some ways more like retro, old school. You talked about being mugged. I don't know that she was like harmed, but I was very concerned for her because now these people knew that she was generous. They knew that she gave them some money, and they followed her, knew where she lived. And so we did report that. So I would say the number one thing to do is just report. And I'm pleased to say I'm glad we did report. Everything is fine. She's safe, but I felt like reporting and spending that time with that widow was definitely the right thing to do, because when I see her, I'm like, I think about someday, I may be old and I may be a widow, and I will just want someone to look out for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That was very nice of you. It's amazing, just all the things you have to look out for. You think you're doing the right thing, and then somebody takes advantage.
Exactly. She gave $20. Okay, you know what? Like, it's holiday time. It's the Home Depot parking lot. People buying Christmas trees. Okay, she's feeling generous. And the next thing you know, she could tell that these people were following her. They didn't harm her. So we called law enforcement. I was very clear. Like, is she hurt? No, but we're concerned. And so they did monitor her, and the likelihood that that person would help was probably slim to none. But I just wanted to report it because, rather be safe than sorry.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much, Rita, for spending all this time and giving us all the information. I'm going to have every single website you've mentioned on the show notes and the direct links so people can access them. What are some parting tips, that you would say if somebody, the takeaways from this call that you would want people to take with them? Just 1 or 2 things that you would say, if there's anything I want you to take away from this, it's the following.
Buy a shredder. The second thing I would say is opt out of those solicitations. And the third item I would say is make sure you do monitor your credit, because even if you don't think that you're a victim of identity theft or fraud, it's just important that you're not unpleasantly surprised. So those are my 3 takeaways.
I love it. So buy a shredder, stop unsolicited pre-approvals and all that mail, and what was the third one?
Your credits.
Monetary credit.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm here writing it down. So I was like drawing the blank because, I want to make sure I get this information out. So thank you so much, Rita. And I really appreciate you coming out. And I look forward to, I'm sure, having you again at some point in the future. If anybody listening, if you have any questions, I'm also going to put Rita's contact information on the show notes and her social media and all that stuff. By the way, speaking of social media, where do you live on social media, Rita? Do you prefer Facebook, Instagram? And if so, what are the handles that people will follow you on?
You know what? People pick on Twitter, but I love Twitter. That's how Luis and I met. So I'm at Blue Ocean GW.
Blue Ocean GW. Awesome. So a little quick disclaimer. This is for informational purposes only. Make sure to always consult with your financial advisor, attorney, or CPA. Blue Ocean Global Wealth, Build a Better Financial Future, Retirement Wealth Advisors are not affiliated. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we look forward to seeing you in the next show.
Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Send Luis an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. To read the show notes and the blog, please visit www.onmywaytowealth.com. Luis Rosa is an investment advisor representative of Retirement Wealth Advisors, Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. Build a Better Financial Future and Retirement Wealth Advisors are not affiliated. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. This information should not be considered tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with the professionals specializing in the fields of tax, legal, accounting, or investments regarding the applicability of this information for their situation. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments will fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested.